Alright, welcome back. This is M-Dog, and we are here at Mosquito Lake. 5289, clip 7 on the first two lines, clip 8 on the third line. Looks like there's a fish on over here. I saw somebody post some information about this spot and thought that it would be worth coming to check out. If for nothing else, any of the lower level players, people who are new to the game, if you stumble upon this video and this spot is still active, it seems like this is going to be a pretty good spot. Let's go check the cafe real quick. I'm going to start, the bite rate's so good, I'm going to start getting rid of fish that aren't markers. One of the things I like about this spot is that we are getting a lot of markers. Okay, so we need one more little gibble and some bigger gibbles, a couple more roach. And that other perch order went off, so we're not going to end up with too many cafe orders, I don't think. We'll see how it goes, though. One thing I like about this spot, let me catch these fish, and then we'll just take a look at the baits we're using and our setups. Okay, one thing is, so first, I guess let's start down here. I've got 3 different baits on just to kind of show you. Worm, one of the interesting things is worm is catching a decent number of eyed down here. We are using basic Crucian gibble mix, so that's something you can make from level 1. I'm using an inline rig. I'm using size 12 hooks, 14, 16, you know, kind of wherever your comfort level is. Size 12 does seem to be working pretty well right now, although as we get into the evening, if we don't catch some nice rough on 12, we may go down to a little bit smaller, because I think rough is going to be active in the evening here. But let's look at all the different species of fish we've caught here in a very short amount of time. Chinese sleepers, very small bream. Chinese sleeper, a very small common carp, roach, crucian, gibble, eyed, perch, rough, and then tench. And actually some decent tench have come out. Let's see, the largest being this one, which was on regular worm. So now the baits, from left to right, we're using bloodworm, red worm, and regular worm. Here is yet another tench. This is one of the reasons why I put bloodworm out there, is because it does seem like, although the tench is kind of biting on all 3 of these baits, it seems like bloodworm's doing some decent work. Now, when it gets to be evening, overnight, we're going to change the baits up a little bit. We'll definitely keep red worm on, maybe times 2 even, but we'll change bloodworm to night crawlers. And if we start seeing some sleepers come out, we might even throw fish pieces on there and see if we can't hit a trophy sleeper. So first of all of these fish have been caught on regular Crucian gibble ground bait with these 3 baits. So I wanted to sort of present that. All of them are set up the same, size 12 hooks. I'm using 4.3 fluorocarbon leaders. If you're really low level, you may not have access to those, but you should still do pretty well here, even with just normal mono line. Typically at Mosquito, most of the fish don't care too much about the fluorocarbon line. Another nice roach. But what I like about this spot, especially for low-level players, is that the bite rate is so good and the percentage of marker fish is relatively high. So it seems like a spot where you can make some pretty good silver and XP in a fast manner if you are at lower level. And then if you're a little higher level, might be worth, playing around with this spot some, see if you can't zero in on some trophies. I don't know exactly what's going to be available. I know that some folks have been catching sleeper trophies. Crucian gibbles I'm not sure of, nor anything else. So that's why I thought it would be fun to come out here and see what we can do. So because all of our baits right now are, at least currently, so worm focused, I thought it'd be fun to play around with a ground bait. I haven't made it yet, but I've already got it all filled in so that it won't take but a second. And there's another nice tench. It's really weird how active the tench are in this spot. So let's do that real quick. Obviously, if you're low level, you're not going to be able to do this. You have to level up ground bait to even use some of these types of ingredients. But again, I just thought it'd be fun for us for this experiment to try this. So we're going to keep worm-based baits on, and we're going to embrace those worms with a lot of additives. And let's just see if it works, if it seems good, or if it actually, in fact, kills the bite rate. Hopefully it doesn't do that. All right, I'm going to favorite it so it's easier for me to find it. And I'm going to go ahead and switch everything over real quick. It's still early enough that I think, let's see, we have 60 pieces of it. That should last us, presumably, through the night. Easy. We'll have to let this new ground bait take effect a little bit, but hopefully it will continue to do some good work. I'll keep worms out there a little longer, and we'll keep at least one red worm out there all night long. But especially as it gets to be early morning, I'm wondering if we can't. Maybe we don't need to switch fish pieces. I've seen, like on the US weeklies, I've seen fish pieces showing up a couple times, but it looks like red worm and night crawlers might be just as good. So maybe we'll stay wormy the whole time. But once it's nighttime, I want to at least get night crawlers on one, and I think we want to come off regular worms and double up on red worms. Perhaps. We'll see how things are looking. But during the overnight hours, you know, we're kind of staying on the worm stuff. I don't know how good this spot is, though, for crucian gibble trophies. It might actually be better to go with more bread and semolina and that kind of stuff to try to get those crucian gibble trophies. What we're more likely to see on the worm baits, I guess, are rough and then eventually sleepers. So let's see how this goes. We're going to switch this one to night crawlers. Trophy rough, love to come in on those night crawlers traditionally. I don't know, we'll see how it goes here. Yeah, we're already starting to see some nice rough come in, especially as it gets later. I think that's what we'll see a lot of. And worms should work maybe just as good as red worms for the rough. I don't know. Of course, if you just really want to hit the red worms, you know, you can always go much smaller hook size. What we're doing is more focusing on, can we hit a bunch of trophy, another eyed, can we hit a bunch of trophy rough, not a bunch, but can we hit a trophy rough, I guess is what we're saying. And then eventually possibly a trophy sleeper once they start biting again. So we'll see how it goes. 12 might be a little big on the hook size. There's a lot of variables, so I don't know. Let's just see how it goes. I'm not sure. We may have to make adjustments as we go, though. But I wanted to start off with worms, red worms, and bloodworms. Bloodworms and worms obviously are always really easy to get. Purchase, dig, whatever. Red worms are often expensive. Ooh, look at that. Big boy. So if you haven't saved up, if you're lower level and you haven't saved up much silver, sometimes you have to buy the red worms in such big bulk because they go out of stock in the smaller servings. But definitely check Mosquito, check Winding. I bet they're out here right now. I think last time I looked, you had to spend like a bunch of silver to get red worms here. I don't know what it's like at Winding or any of the other places. Yeah, so you got to spend 200 to get 600. So that's a lot for a low-level player. But they may be in stock other places. Definitely check. And obviously also be working on your harvesting baits. So you get bloodworms first. No, where's red worms? Oh, no. Let Okay, you can start digging redworms early. So yeah, just get you a shovel, start digging. But again, I think that ultimately, that bream was on night crawlers. Ultimately, I think that even if you don't have redworms yet, bloodworms and worms are also going to be really good in this spot. So I was just trying to make sure that it would work with other baits, and it certainly did. And anyone can get their hand on worms and bloodworms very cheap, if not free. For the worms, that is. And bloodworms are relatively inexpensive. I guess I should check. I don't think bloodworms ever go out of stock. But they're not always as good a bait as they are right now. Bloodworms seem to be really working at Mosquito, even with tench. Like some of the larger tench are coming out on bloodworm. So bloodworm seems to be good right now. Oh, it's not considered a worm. Yeah, so you can get bloodworms very cheaply. Let me see what of those ground baits I just used, what's in stock here. Yeah, all of it is. We could have even gone farther into embracing the worms. In fact, we could have gone with the isn't there an attractant? Yeah, we could have used bloodworm or earthworm attractant as well. So we could have even leaned heavier into this. That actually would be fun to try as well. I was trying to keep the recipe, the base, and the additive, not the additive, the attractant, somewhat similar to just like a very standard low level, but then obviously adding all the crazy additives, worm-based additives. Something is pulling. Is it this one? Yeah, just a little rough or something. All right, since it's middle of the night, let's change these quiver tips to smaller. Oh, is that a nice crucian? And that was on worm. Okay, so I've still got worm in. Trying to think if we just want to stay with worm, or do we want to have 2 times red worm right now? We'll stay with worm a little longer. Now, a lot of times I think that overnight, when it's this late, if you can get on a good run of Crucian Gibbles trophies, it's worth... Oh, we can do the Tench order. That is awesome. It's worth doing that. Yeah, we've got to be getting close on that common roach order. But since they remade Mosquito, I honestly haven't fished here that much. I just don't know how common or how frequently the Crucian Gibble trophies are coming out. But I suspect overnight like this, if they were going to come out, it's more likely they'd come out on some sort of bread, doughy bait, semolina bread, something like that. But sometimes night crawlers have worked too in the past, but again, I don't know about right now. And see, if I think if we had size 20 or even 24 hooks on right now, I think we'd be catching little rough right and left, which at the end of the day might be better than, you know, letting it slow down this much. This spot may just be more interesting during the day when all of those different species are coming out at the same time. It's crazy that we had a couple marker eyes here. I bet you could float fish right here for any number of things as well. If the tench are coming out, maybe there's a small chance that a golden tench might come out in this spot. Let's see. Yeah, look at the variety of baits that golden tench have come out. Oh, and this was today. on bloodworm. There's part of me that's like, especially during the day, is it possible that the way to go right now is just to fish with bloodworm on everything? I don't know. How are we doing on silver? It adds up when you've got some of these different fit. Yeah, we've already got 85 silver in like half a day, less than half a day. Yeah, this is getting too slow, isn't it? All right. Well, let's at least switch one to embrace the I'll go red worm. Let's just embrace the rough here for a minute. See if this catches rough at a decent rate. So we went smaller hook on that one. I don't really know what this is. Red worm. I guess it could be a bream. We almost got its head turned there. How much strength does it have? What is this? Common carp? It's a little late for a tench, I think. Eyed? Okay, eyed could be what it is. We have seen eyed, and eyed will bite overnight. Sometimes the healthiest eyed come in overnight. Starting to be afraid if this is a carp. It doesn't seem to be wearing out at all. If it keeps this up, we're gonna have to cross that bridge. These aren't big reels. We don't have huge spools. See if we can get it to start coming our way, though. It might be getting a little tired. I feel like it's starting to turn. Alright, we can see what it is. I think it's an eyed, right? Wow. That guy was a fighter, too. So just nothing on... so this just be a little rough if I'm not mistaken. Okay, that's on 24. Let's go up to 20. Still red worm. Nothing on Nightcrawler. Probably should have just held off on Nightcrawler until sleeper time. And then also probably just a little too large a hook. I'd be curious if we had 14s, 15s on there, if maybe we would have even had a little better night with Nightcrawlers. Actually, I'm not sure. Can we go to 15 with Nightcrawlers? No. So it has to be... Well, what about 14? Nope. So I think it has to be 12, doesn't it? So if we want to see Nightcrawlers, we have to keep the 12 on. Okay. I'll keep it going just to see what, if anything, bites on it. Or when it starts to bite on it. So, let's see. Is that the same for fish pieces? Nightcrawlers have to be 12. Fish pieces can be 14. So if we wanted to try to hit a Chinese sleeper on 14, we could. It's another rough. So we're still catching them even on the size 12 hook, but we're catching them more often on the appropriate size hook. There's a size 20 hook with rough. And when other fish start coming in, we'll change that hook size again. But for now, let's just, and again, if you are low level, first of all, a lot of times the 24 silver just for a few marker rough, but a lot of times there are really nice cafe orders for rough. There just happens to not be right now. But if you notice, there often is. The next thing we should do, or somebody needs to do, is find out where a nice float fishing spot for white bream would be. Because if you could catch those with any regularity here at Mosquito, which they tend to respond better to float these days than bottom, but there also is really nice white bream orders at Mosquito. Yeah, the spot is so much more interesting during the day. So I fished this spot for like 5 minutes, and then I had to go do work for a while, so that's why there's this huge time gap. But in reality, I only, got in a few minutes during the day before we hit this long overnight time where it slowed down. So there are rough here, and if you can imagine, if you had size 18, 20 hooks on all three with worms or red worms, catching rough all night, that'd be a pretty good night for a low-level player. Now we're starting to get bites on all three. I think we're kind of finally over the hump. Let's see what's on night crawlers. This can be a nice fish. Not a rough though. It's an eyed again on night crawlers. It's a little eyed hole here. All right, Crucian gibbles are waking up. Hopefully we can catch something else on this line. I want to do something else with this line. Maybe we'll switch this to fish pieces. I don't know. Just to see what happens. Once the Chinese sleepers are active. Speak of the white bream. And that was on red worm. Let's see. 12. Let's just do bloodworm for a bit. I haven't seen a Chinese sleeper come in yet, so I don't think we waste our time on fish pieces just yet, but red worm's been so good. Let's put that back in for a little bit. So now we're back to 3 different baits. Nightcrawler, red worm, and bloodworm. If I had to choose one bait though, I'd probably still say red worm. Just not knowing exactly how good bloodworm is for the full like day-night cycle. But they're all good. I mean, it's just an active little hole, fishing hole here. I gotta watch this friction break. We could catch something nasty on this nightcrawler. Ooh, the tench are starting to come in. I'm telling you, for a Mosquito, this is a nice little spot. And the largest tench I caught was on worm. But they're biting all the worm baits right now. This is a weird setup, right? Kind of a big hook for such a small bait. If you're going to use bloodworm, it might be worth seeing like, okay, what's it do with size 15 hooks? Still catching a lot of markers, but it's more appropriate for the bait size probably. There's bloodworm going off again. Getting a nibble, but it's not on there yet. The other thing is, I would say this ground bait we made so far hasn't been anything special. Crucian Gibble ground bait seem to do just as good, if not better. I don't know that we're messing anything up with this ground bait, but it's not really adding anything to it that I can tell. Yeah, I think red worm three straight across would probably be the best bite rate and good fish over, average in terms of on average some good fish just using red worms. But I know that red worms aren't always easily accessible to low level players, at least in bulk. So just keep digging. I think there's a fish on the bloodworm. It's just not pulling hard enough. Maybe another rough or something. Finally another bite on night crawlers. And that's the thing, night crawlers are interesting and potentially could catch some nice fish here, but way too slow. I mean, one of the nice things about this spot is you potentially have a really high bite rate of marker fish, and night crawlers is just getting in the way. It's just slowing it down too much. But it's good to see what the different baits are, how they're doing. And I would say though night crawlers can catch some nice fish, it's just too slow. Especially at least, at night. We'll see during the day, early part of the day here. I'm not going to go too much longer. This has been an interesting and I think it's a good little spot to fish, but we won't belabor the point too much longer. That looks like a solid bite. It doesn't look like a rough nor a sleeper though. Okay, I think we have that roach order now. I don't remember how big they had to be. Let's go check. Little bitty crucian. Oh, it's only from 174. That's interesting. Let's see. Common roach. Yeah, it's almost the same. How much time's left on the order? Yeah, let's see if we get any smaller roach before we do that. It's only like a silver and a half difference or something. There's one thing we're getting on redworm that we're not getting so far on night crawlers or bloodworms is some of these decent crucians. I just wonder if you sit on overnight, you sit on like bread or semolina, you might catch a rare, like a occasional crucian or gibble trophy. Old school mosquito. Still no more sleepers coming out. It's not as active for sleepers as I was expecting it to be initially. When I first started fishing here, it felt like, you know, we got 2 sleepers in a row really early. And so I was like, all right. There's a couple more. But they haven't been as present as I had hoped. Is that fish on, or did it just like move the bait and then leave? It's still messing with it, I think. Okay. Bloodworm. What is this gonna be? Hide. Alright, so we've got bloodworm, red worm, and then we want to go back to regular worm on this one. This was our daytime setup. This is how we started, and the only difference now is we initially had just the regular crucian gibble ground bait on there. If we start seeing sleepers come out, then yeah, maybe we'll switch something to a... Whoa, that's crazy. That needs to calm down. We're at 65 fish already. It's a gibble. Okay, well there you go. I mean, I just yeah, I don't know. It's been fun. I've enjoyed fishing at this little spot. We did get a couple small gibbles, didn't we? Nice little easy order. We're 1 gibble short there, and oh yeah. Get a little more silver from crucians. Not getting white breams enough to think we're going to necessarily get that order. We already have that order. Lots of silver from cafe orders and some decent silver from the whole net as well. We'll keep going a little bit longer here. Is there anything else I want to try? I think if I was approaching the spot again fresh, I wouldn't use that worm ground bait, because that would free us up to use semolina and bread and stuff like that a little bit more and see what else we could coax out of this spot. So just kind of staying with crucian gibble ground bait, I think, might be the way to go. During the day, I definitely like the wormy stuff. But at night, I think there might have been a better approach, either to fully embrace catching as many rough as possible, or see if you can't get some pretty decent crucian gibbles during the night. Got some nibblers right now. I really like bloodworm in this spot. It's catching so many different species and nice markers. And remember, we've got big hooks. You know, use little smaller hooks, you're going to get even better bite rate. I was just trying to figure out how to get as many markers as possible. But if you're real low level, you just want to catch a real high bite rate because that's going to level you up on your skills as well as just from the XP of catching fish. For a while in this test, I didn't really like worms. It just seemed like it wasn't doing it quite as good as the other baits, but then I caught that really big tench on worms and realized that maybe worms was worth having out there. The perch have really been coming in on red worms more than anything else, and normally I feel like it's worms that grab those random perch. So it's 10 a.m. in game. I mean, we've kind of gotten through the hot part. I mean, it's going to do this all day. I mean, I think it'll be active all day, catching decent fish, but I think I've sat here long enough to get a good feel for it. Hopefully this will be helpful to someone if you are just looking for a really active place or just a fun place. I think we could continue to dial in. There's a nice rough. We could continue to dial in on this spot, and there's just so many active species. The question is just like, are there, in terms of hook sizes, ground baits, you know, which is going to get the best percentage of high quality fish and maybe even give us a chance for a trophy now and again. No question you can get rough and sleepers in you know, trophy sizes here. The trick is also like, what could we do to get some crucian gibble chances too? Okay, let's just see where we're at silver wise, just so you have an idea, and then I'll go ahead and wrap this one up. All right, 128 silver at Mosquito, plus all those cafe orders. I mean, you're actually making a decent living for a low-level player. Some of these fish are hard to pull out, according to what your gear is, but you can do it. You can wear the tench and eyed out. Just don't let them spool you. Only the one common carp, which is nice, and I think that actually came in on red worm. Let's check, though, to make sure. Yeah, no, it's bloodworm. Again, bloodworm catching everything. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope it was helpful, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Peace out.